if you over automate the like automated messages that are being sent on behalf of the CSM, at that point, you kind of lose control of the narrative. The thing that I preach over and over again is you have to insert yourself into your customer's journey on a regular basis as a leader. The more automation you put in place without checks and balances, the more likely you're just confusing your customer with stuff coming at them all over the place. Once again, welcome to the Digital Customer Experience Podcast with me, Alex Turkovich. So glad you could join us here today and every week as we explore how digital can help enhance the customer and employee experience. My goal is to share what my guests and I have learned over the years so that you can get the insights that you need to evolve your own digital programs. If you'd like more info, need to get in touch, or sign up for the weekly companion newsletter that has additional articles and resources in it, go to digitalcustomersuccess.com. For now, let's get started. Hello and welcome back to the Digital CX Podcast, the show where we talk about all things digital in CX. Kind of mash those words together, but you get what I mean. This is episode 89 for you today. So creeping on towards 100 episodes, which I'm super excited about. And have a couple surprises in store for you for that episode. Regardless, today is going to be a little bit unconventional, I guess. And we've done this once before where we've kind of had two shows recorded at the same time. But my guest today is Michael Forney, who's a local Austinite. He's a CS leader, and he's starting his own show that is really focused on AI and CS. So he was kind enough to invite me for his inaugural episode. So we recorded that not long ago, I think last week at some point. And so I figured he's released it on his stream. I figured I would release it as well on mine because it's a really cool conversation just about, our thoughts on current state of AI in CS. And I figured you'd get a kick out of the conversation as well. So today, a shared episode with myself and Michael Forney. Just a quick housekeeping note before we get into the episode. I will be speaking at the Customer Success Summit event in Austin, February, I think it's the 10th and the 11th, 12th, something like that. I'll link the event details in the show notes so that you can go and have a look. And if you want to attend, I'd love to see you there. Without further ado, here's the episode with Michael Forney.
Alex, thank you so much for being on the first episode of MondAI CS, where we talk all things AI and CS.
I was very curious to hear you pronounce MondAI.
I was curious too. That was the first time I'd vocalized it inside of a microphone.
Did it feel good?
It felt okay. I think I can do better. MondAI. I think there's an important pause between the end of the D and the A.
Or you just call it Monday.
I was thinking that too.
Yeah.
But then, I don't know. Let's see what happens in the wild. Let's see what other people say.
I can't wait to see where this journey takes you. But it's great to be here. Thanks.
Thank you, dude. Well, you've been very generous, with your time, and you were just showing me a really interesting example of you leveraging, is it AI or is it robotics or is it both?
Bit of both, I guess.
All right. So tell me about this, or do you not want to reveal your secret?
No. Yeah, that's fine. So I just, joined a new company, 3 months ago, November, something like that. And one of the things we decided to do this year was to send out holiday cards, but wanted to do it handwritten. So we actually used this awesome service called Handwritten with VRYTTEN. So go look them up. I think it's just handwritten.com. Where basically all you do is you upload an address list and the message that you want to send, and they have a bunch of robots in the background that do the handwriting. So I'll show you I'll block my address out, but this is kind of what it looks like on the envelope. So it looks like it's handwritten, and then you basically design your card. You can do it on the platform, and then you upload it, and they put a little handwritten message in there. You can even insert, Booleans or tokens for first name and all that kind of stuff. Wow. In the message, and they send it. And so we're integrating that into our tech stack too, to send handwritten notes to our customers when they graduate onboarding and all that kind of stuff. I think the AI part would be using some of the AI kind of signals that we get to trigger some of those handwritten notes and whatnot. But super cool
Dude.
stuff, because it like combines that human element with the machine element.
Yeah, completely. And you get to stand out in the paper mail, which is actually kind of a good way to market and advertise these days.
Right.
Because
and it doesn't look like shit. Sorry, can I cuss on this show?
you can do whatever you want.
Great. Clothes are coming off. No,
All right.
It doesn't look like crap. Like, you know how you get like those obviously fake handwritten, it actually looks like somebody put pen to paper, which is bizarre. And they have like, this isn't a handwritten commercial, by the way, I promise you that, but there's like a list of like 100 different writing styles that you can choose from. So you can choose like really sloppy ones or really neat ones. So it's cool.
I think the fascinating part about that is that it's actually written. I mean, I've seen this kind of thing before, but it's printed. And then when you receive it, it totally takes away from it when you see the fact that the what should be handwriting is printed. And it's like, at that point, I just kind of tune out.
Totally.
So that's cool.
Yep.
And I like that. Yeah, I like that you're thinking about doing this on the heels of, say, onboarding. And so what I was actually going to do to open this show up is just to say, hey, Alex, when someone says AI, what is coming to your mind? Like when you think about AI, what is on your mind?
Chaos and confusion.
Chaos and confusion. So you think we're still in like the thrash?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, I think there's a lot of just confusion about how to use it, and I think even a little bit of guilt. There's like professional guilt involved if people like are using it less than others, and it's like, I should be using AI more than I am, or they start shitting themselves about it. But like, I think one of the things that I am finding is because the cost of development is plummeting, and we now have all these, kind of startup companies that are in the CS niche that are kind of, developing some use case centered technology. We have this kind of wide swath of different startups, and then, larger companies like your Gainsights and your Tatangos and whatnot that are all tackling AI and integrating AI in some form or fashion, some as a kind of a direct product, and some as kind of like add-on to their direct product. And so it's just, the market is just so wide and disparate with like different things. And so I think what we're going to start seeing is like a pretty rapid consolidation of use cases and companies, and a swallowing up of different vendors that are doing different things. And hopefully that'll add some clarity into like, what platform should you look for? What technology should you look for? What vendor do you need to, target? Because, I think right now it's the wild, wild west, and it can get confusing very, very fast. And I know a lot of people, when they get kind of overwhelmed and confused with it, they just kind of shut their laptop and walk away. So
I want to pick up on what you said about the guilt.
Yeah.
This is interesting.
Yeah.
So in many ways, I look at AI and sometimes I do have a little bit of that sense of guilt, but then I try to remind myself, if you use a calculator today, nobody has guilt about using a calculator when knowing that the actual math behind everything would take you forever to do. And if you're like me, you probably just couldn't even do it anyway.
Totally.
Even if it's regular, it takes me an embarrassingly a long amount of time to do even just simple addition and subtraction. So I would be nowhere without a calculator or Excel.
Same.
So tell me more about what you mean by guilt with AI.
I think we might be thinking about it in slightly different ways, because it's fine. This is important, because I think you're thinking about like people who have guilt using AI instead of like doing it the hard way or whatever. I'm thinking that there's a lot of people out there who feel guilty for not having adopted it yet, or they're not actively using ChatGPT as part of their daily life, or Gemini or whatever, flavor you're plugged into or whatever, because there are a lot of people who just aren't using it on a regular basis. And I mean, I think that's okay.
Yeah.
I think it's okay. Are you going to be better off in the long run knowing how to prompt versus not knowing how to prompt? I don't really think so, because I think prompting is a short there's a finite window of time that we're in right now where prompting is the skill that you need to have to effectively use artificial intelligence. But that prompting stuff is all going to go behind the wall, so to speak. Like, I don't know. I don't think 10, 15 years from now, you're going to need to be real good at prompting, because guess what? Artificial intelligence will be sentient and we'll all be out of a job anyway. So whatever.
True. I think about, as excited as I am about AI, there's at least a part of me, anyone who grew up watching the likes of Terminator 2, it just feels like an inevitable future that we all kind of put outside of, or at least me, I put it outside my mind, enjoying the roller coaster until that happens, or hopefully doesn't happen.
Well, look, here's the deal. We're all human, and we're talking about customer success, right? And in customer success, humans are always going to want to talk to other humans.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're, we're in SaaS, right? So if we're speaking with a customer, or we're engaging with a customer, exchanging actual, what I like to call mouth words with the customer is a very, very important thing. And I don't think that's going anywhere. I think where artificial intelligence comes in is like helping you prep for those conversations, helping you have those conversations, helping you look up information in real time while you're having those conversations, so you can have more productive ones and be more efficient with your time and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's what we're starting to see, right, with the chatbots and live agents and co-pilots and all that kind of stuff, that helps us have those conversations. But also, like, to our point earlier, I don't think we've quite gotten there yet. Like, we haven't quite arrived at that point yet. It's still just like this thing we have open, ChatGPT or whatever, and we ask it to do some things for us, but it's not like this live agent helper situation.
So much to pull on there. I think one of the first things you had said was about people maybe feeling guilty not using it. So in the spirit of give the CS world, let's give the CS world one practical takeaway of like, what is something, if people say want to get in on the fun, what's something that they can do or use to their advantage to help them out that can be easily adopted?
Yeah, for sure. Well, so there's a couple things. And I did record an episode about that specifically that you can go check out. I'll give you the link to it. It's basically an AI primer for CSMs. And it gives you some practical kind of use cases of AI. Also gives you a nice like prompting framework that you can use to kind of make your prompts a little bit better and all that kind of stuff. But I think, look, there's some super simple things that I think a lot of tools are doing for us now, like call transcripts and things like that I think are pretty easy to get at, whether the tool that you're using to record your calls does it or not, or whether you basically feed a transcript into ChatGPT to create a summary for you. I think that's a massive time saver. One little slight tweak to that I would add is using a tool like Gamma to create a quick PowerPoint deck as a summary for your calls. Like I've thrown my AI call summaries into Gamma, had it create like a 3 or 4 slide deck for me, and sent the deck out as a call recap, which is kind of a cool thing because it's a visual thing. So I think there's all kinds of little things that you can do to, as a CSM, to just help you operate more efficiently, more smoothly with the stuff. I always tell people, think of the stuff that you spend at least 20 minutes typing. Like if you're spending 15, 20 minutes typing something up, I guarantee you can help yourself reduce that amount of time by at least 80% by using ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever.
I completely agree. And I think the ground game, I think where I felt the alleviation for me, like my little Band-Aid, my skin is starting to crack with this dry Austin weather.
Totally. We're all complaining. It's like 30 degrees. It's so cold.
Yeah, especially for those of us who moved from California. I'm one of those.
Yeah.
And so, I'm like, it's cold. So, anyhow, I'm losing my train of thought. What was I talking about? Oh, the short unlock. In CS, I think the email is the lowest hanging fruit on how to help. Now, I will say that rather than just, hey, draft this email for me, where I have found help with things like GPT is, and I'm a terrible prompter. In fact, just the other day, I had GPT write me a prompt for another AI, and that was like kind of a cool hack that I had never tried before, but I was like, oh, duh, that makes a ton of sense. Why don't you tell me what I should tell you?
Totally.
Yeah.
That's a good thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was actually a little bit of a help. But on say the emails, in CS, we're trying to sell value. We're trying to convince folks to believe in us. We need their buy-in for certain workflows or workarounds. Like there is one part of what we do in CS as kind of instructing and telling and advising, but it is made so much better when you can tap into the things that are important for your customer, when you can tap into the lessons from, say, that How to Win Friends and Influence People book, right? That book changed my life.
Right.
And when I'm writing certain emails that I know are going to be difficult to receive as a customer because I can't give them what they want, or I have to introduce them to something else that they weren't expecting, I use GPT in that way, and I ask it to help. I ask it to leverage that book as an example of how to write the content such that it's not just well written in good grammar, but that it's tapping into thinking in the other person's shoes. I also have the benefit of having a corporate GPT account, so I don't have to mask any sort of customer names or anything else like that. So that's super helpful. But if you don't have a corporate account, you can just double click and mask out the names, make it something else.
I think that's an important call out though, because I don't think a lot of people realize that. And that being, unless you've set up your GPT account a specific way, or like you are a part of your corporate entity's ChatGPT instance, unless you've done those things, you're training the algorithm. And
completely.
You do not want to train your algorithm on your company's sensitive information, which is interesting because you can actually use that to your favor as well. In fact, at my previous gig, the marketing department did this whole campaign of prompting using some of the marketing material and some of the kind of feature benefits and those kinds of things because they wanted to train OpenAI's algorithms on the benefits and features of the platform, right? So they kind of on purpose did that. But if you're using if you're prompting and you're not kind of on lockdown a little bit, that can be tricky. But to your point, I think what you bring up is interesting because one of the things that AI can help unlock for us is what we would otherwise spend hours and hours searching our internal systems for, which is to say, like, historical conversation context, what the purchase history of a customer is, what their product usage is. And I think organizations that are using artificial intelligence in a really effective way are doing it in a way that really the primary mission for artificial intelligence is the aggregation of that information so that you, the CSM, or you, the support person, or you, the whoever, can quickly get answers to or a historical kind of summary of the account that you're kind of working with. Now, vendors like Gainsight are actively trying to do this in platform, right? There's others who have done it in a homebrew kind of way by using Zapier and all kinds of other integration fun stuff. But I think that's ultimately another huge aspect of artificial intelligence that most of our industry, or I guess the practice of CS isn't really plugged into, is the just availability of data and insights and information about our customers.
It is incredibly helpful. I'll be honest. In fact, we are a Gainsight shop at Responsive, and they had AI already plugged into NPS, and before we're starting to use their Copilot thing now, which is kind of interesting, but it's still early. But the NPS data, they were able to illuminate some clustering. And I think that's actually one of the coolest things that AI does, which the funny thing is, like, with how fast AI moves, something that was so revolutionary even just a few months ago now seems like almost like old news or table stakes to the people who are paying attention to it.
Yeah.
And I fully appreciate the fact that like some people are deep in it and some people are like you said, not at all using it. So there's a wide variety of folks with different comfort levels and knowledge of what exists. But clustering analysis with AI has been a huge unlock just in terms of like aggregating our NPS feedback, for example, with thousands of data points and the comments that people were leaving. They were able to group those into different clusters, which a data scientist could do anyway. But I feel like it did something different in a unique way that allowed us to identify a very like clear and present part of our platform that we needed to work on that just hadn't gotten kind of the proper light shined on it before. So it was very helpful. And, we use that in our strategic decision making for what we're working on next. So that was very helpful. The Gainsight Copilot, like I said, it's still early, but it is reading the Gainsight timeline. So it is interesting. And so there's definitely, folks also say that they use, in fact, I think it was you who told me about Perplexity. For researching companies that your customer. It can be super helpful. There's certain, let's say, like if I'm researching, let's say Amazon is my customer or something like that, a large company. And if I'm asking Perplexity to do some research on it, I may be deployed in one tiny business unit of Amazon. So it can have its own limitations, but certainly also can illuminate things that you just didn't see before.
Totally. Yeah. That's part of the magic is like, it'll tell you the obvious stuff, but then it'll also illuminate some things that you didn't think about, like that, the clustering analysis that you were talking about is prime for that, where, you can look at your NPS responses for that, to use that example on a spreadsheet and you can read through them all and all that kind of stuff, but you're likely to miss some commonalities here and there. Unless you're like spending tons of time in the data and reading every single verb and noun, right?
Yeah.
Whereas AI can spit that stuff out for you in like a second. So even, again, that quick hack type situation, even if you want to download all of your CSAT responses into a CSV and put that into ChatGPT and ask it to do some pretty pointed analysis on the language and things like that. I mean, that's like, you don't need a freaking, $200,000 CSP to do that for you. You can just use ChatGPT if you're on lockdown.
No, it's smart. In fact, I haven't even done that yet. I have so many plans for what I want to do with unlocking the black box of support in general, because there's so many conversations that happen inside of there.
Yeah.
That I think can be very informative to the business in terms of what else needs to be worked on that can help you bring the data. So analyzing the comments from Zendesk tickets is actually a really good idea that I didn't think of, that I'm going to try and go do.
All right.
Now, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure.
The other thing is, so there's all sorts of little tactical things. The other thing is the strategy. So you mentioned that people want to talk to another human. Now, I'm gonna steel man that for a second, because number one, I believe in what you're saying. Like, I believe that people want to talk. I believe people want to build relationships with other humans. When it comes to talking, though, I have actually started to use that conversational model with GPT. And the only thing I mind about it is that I take long pauses and it thinks that I'm done talking. So
you can adjust that.
Really?
Dude, yeah, absolutely. Okay. Because I use it on my walks a lot, and I'll just have a conversation with ChatGPT on my, when I'm walking around the neighborhood or whatever. And it kept like thinking I was done, and you can ask it to basically adjust the pace. So just top tip. Anyway, not too.
I love that. I do that each time I'm about to talk to it. Is that what you mean, or is there like some setting?
Yeah, no, it's like, but you can commit it to memory, I believe.
Okay,
you can like literally ask it to commit it to memory.
Okay, so this is another reason why having a corporate account, for example, is a very good idea. One, I mean, the IT team of your company should embrace it should embrace it. Mostly because if you don't, you're depending on people to scrub things out and not put stuff into places where they shouldn't, which people are error prone. We make mistakes. And so I'd rather have a place where, people can put everything, absolutely everything, and then store, like you said, the memory, that actually comes in really handy. I asked GPT the other day, what were some of the what were some of the big accomplishments that we made in 2024? That's all I asked it. And it remembered everything that I had told it over the last several months, and it was very good at remembering, people we hired and decisions we made and different directions that we went as the impact that we had. So I think that it makes the case for not just using it for tactical items, but the more you have conversations in a protected environment, like a corporate account, the more you have conversations on the strategy level. Two things actually come out of that. One is that it's as if you're talking to a coach and anything's on the table, which is actually very helpful, especially in a leadership position where, so much of your time actually does need to be spent working on your business instead of in your business, right? Yeah. You have to be zooming out, because it's so easy to get into a groove, into a way of working in a pattern. And so I recently used it. We made some changes inside of the leadership team. We brought in some new people from the outside, and we made a couple new director positions. And I asked it to help me out with the operational cadence of like, how do I, it used to be a much smaller team, but now we have a larger team with these different remits. So I wanted it to help me think through, like, what is the best use of everyone's time here? And how do we do the things that we do to make the most out of everyone's time and to make sure that we're being both strategic and tactical in the right ways? And a lot of times my prompts were kind of like that, like very, very rough in the beginning, and just kind of work through it. And that has been a huge help. And that's just me talking to, in air quotes, somebody that doesn't exist, but it's given me a lot of help.
I've done probably things you shouldn't do with ChatGPT conversational mode.
Okay.
One of them, let's see. I got my first kind of sponsors for the podcast mid last year, something like that. And in preparation for that, basically I had ChatGPT with some guidelines that I gave it on a walk draft a sponsorship contract. And now, I did not go straight to the vendor with that. I did send that to my lawyer and just had him look over it, and he gave me a couple of notes. But again, there were 4 or 5 contracts that I wanted to put in place for, sponsorship agreements and some other things too, that I basically had ChatGPT create for me, because, I'm not launching rockets over here. I'm just publishing weekly podcasts. It's not a big deal. But I guess the point is it saved me a ton of time, and probably a substantial amount of my lawyer's time as well, just having it be redlined instead of created from scratch, right? So I think there's all kinds of stuff that, people, when OpenAI launched the conversational kind of feature of ChatGPT, a lot of people were comparing it to Her, like the movie Her or whatever. And it's
completely.
And I mean, I will say that it has become a bit of a companion for me, but really more of a work companion, somebody that I can, when I'm not doing anything else, can help me talk through some things that I'm stuck on as a leader, where I don't necessarily want to go to my CEO and talk through, and I don't necessarily want to go to my management team and talk through this stuff. I just want to workshop this stuff on my own. And so having that conversation with ChatGPT is an amazing way to do that, and not only kind of brain dump and get some stuff off of your mind and into the model, but then also it'll come back with a few suggestions that are quite good that you wouldn't have come up with otherwise, nor would your team, because they're all stuck in the day-to-day and they're not thinking about things from an outsider's kind of neutral perspective. So I'm with you 1,000% on using it as a leader to help you unlock some strategery.
So I'm curious why Matic didn't nominate ChatGPT as one of the most influential CS leaders of 2024. Everyone just was posting all of their stuff recently, and I was like, I actually think I've gotten, well, maybe not more help, but I've certainly gotten a lot. I've certainly gotten a lot of help from GPT on
Yeah.
the strategy behind
But
things.
it goes back to that whole thing of like, people are fundamentally afraid that AI is going to replace them in their roles. Maybe I'm being a dinosaur. I'm totally open to the idea or the potential of me like being like, yeah, typewriter's never going to be phased out by a computer. But at the same time, we're all human. I think we all crave human interaction, and we all rely on human interaction. And when it comes to, things like, leadership and coaching and life and customer vendor relationships and coaching basketball and like whatever those things are that we do as humans that we enjoy doing, that's not going anywhere. And so, if you're a leader trying to figure out the agenda for your 2-day offsite, if you're not using ChatGPT to help you with that kind of stuff, I think you might be left behind a little bit. Like it's not so much that AI is going to replace us, but I think you might be replaced by somebody who's using AI more effectively than you are.
Right. I think that's sometimes the things that go without saying need to be said, and that's one of them, which is that AI won't likely. There are things that it will replace for the better,
like data analysis and like all that kind of stuff. Sure.
Yes, or even driving at some point. Like,
God,
I
like driving, man.
I do too, but you know what I like more? Not having cars crash on the road, and there's just no question that those things are way better than us at driving en masse. Not me, of course. I'm a way better driver than the AI. No, I'm not. But I think that's a huge benefit. But yeah, true. So to your point, yes, it's not likely that we'll all just lose our jobs to it. But if it's like a wrench, if you're a plumber and you refuse to use a tool because it was invented after you got started, well, the people with the wrenches are going to turn more screws than you. Like they're going to get through the job faster, and there's no shame in using it. Just like if you would willingly use a calculator or Excel to do your math and formulas for you, mm-hmm. you should also be using AI, even as just like a sounding board. Hey, here's my 2-day plan for an offsite. This is the goal that I have. Do you think this is going to help me get there? Look, worst case scenario, it says, you thought of everything right. I can't think of a single thing to help you. Best case scenario, it's saying like, actually, here are some different things to think instead. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, totally. And it's a great, it's fun to have it give you ideas for stuff. Like,
yes,
yes, it's just fun.
All right. You mentioned earlier in the beginning around incorporating AI into your digital strategy, say for triggering out a letter after onboarding. What else? Like, what else is on your mind in terms of how AI and the digital strategy come together? Like, even if it's not something you're doing yet, like, what are some of your ideas on how those things could coexist?
Yeah, I'm in a playground right now where that's a very real thing, right? Because I joined Belfry in November, and we are in the midst of just rapid growth and trying to scale stuff. And so a big part of my daily brain activity is around like, how can we make things more efficient and smooth and smooth. We are actively interviewing chatbot vendors, to do some of the deflection for us, and even just some of the frontline stuff. We have a customer base who is very in tune to their or very kind of tied to their mobile device, and so looking at ways that even incorporating that into an SMS strategy and getting some AI answers that way. Like, and I'm thinking about it in a brandy kind of way.
Brandy.
Like there's not brandy the drink or the person, but literally creating an avatar around our artificial intelligence. There's it's not a new idea, right?
Belly.
Belly. Yeah, exactly.
Or a little AI assistant,
or like Bell or something like that. Bell. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But yeah, I mean, and then incorporating Bell into like everything. Like having it be having it be kind of a brand. That said, we're very much going to launch that stuff internally before we ever go customer facing with it. And so I want to launch it internally as a team, tool rather than it's just to, kick the tires a little bit more.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The team has ChatGPT, so they all have access to it. They all use it on a regular basis. We're using Gong very, very heavily. And so, things that it's doing for us. So an example would be if there's a customer meeting, it's recorded in Gong. And then what it actually does, because Gong has a very tight integration with Vitally, is a few minutes after the call ends, Vitally will actually give you some suggestions for follow-up tasks that you can schedule for yourself in the CSP, just based on the conversation that it picked up. So it does, there's cool like helper things that we're doing. And I have to say, the one thing that I want to be very careful of as we continue to launch this kind of stuff is I don't want to over-rotate on those things to where it becomes a nuisance and it becomes something that the team ends up hating. And like, we don't, I don't want to create burden with any of this stuff, right? So I think one of the things that's key for me as we continue to implement AI strategies and tools and those kinds of things is just being eyes wide open in terms of, are we actually helping or are we hurting the situation?
And by hurting, do you mean like you're creating like too many to-dos or?
Yeah, too many tasks, too many things being auto-generated. Like, I think there's this interesting kind of inflection point we're at where you could theoretically automate the entire customer journey and have it all be like trigger driven and all this kind of stuff. And I think those that have tried it have more times than not just failed having a completely like autonomous customer journey. I think that extends into let's take a CSM, like a typical enterprise CSM 20, 30 accounts kind of situation as well. If you over automate the like automated messages that are being sent on behalf of the CSM, at that point, you kind of lose control of the narrative a little bit too. And you're potentially inserting some dirt or some noise into an otherwise happy path customer, right? So I think the thing that I preach over and over again is you have to insert yourself into your customer's journey on a regular basis as a leader, because if you're not doing that, you're not actively seeing what emails get triggered when and what notifications go out when and all that kind of stuff. Because the more automation you put in place without checks and balances, the more likely you're just confusing your customer with stuff coming at them all over the place.
Completely. Yeah. All right. That's going to be the mic drop intro.
Boo.
Of the episode. It's true. I mean, the utopia scenario is that everything is digital. You know exactly what your customer needs to do next. You know exactly what value they're getting. You communicate that in the platform, et cetera, et cetera. That's the utopia that I think is appropriate to be driving towards at all times, but is unrealistic that you're going to get there and stay there.
And it's also, not to interject, but I think it's also very important that you insert a human like stop button. Like picture a manufacturing, a production line or whatever. If somebody gets their hand jammed in a machine, you want a stop button. And same thing with a customer journey. That may be a little gross to think about, but the customer journey. If things are going off the rails, and you're actively working a situation, one of the last things that you want to have happen is your pre-renewal email flow going out. Like,
never been guilty of that.
No, it's never happened before.
Yeah,
but it's stupid stuff like that where, it's worth just sitting down and thinking through at least some of the scenarios, and building some fail safes in there.
Yeah. And again, this is where I think the blend of using AI, especially, at least, it's today. And so today using AI is a mix of tactical and strategic. And so not only asking or having AI help you generate emails or generate outreaches or notifications in the product, you can also have it help you on exactly that kind of a strategy of, making sure that there's sufficient places where humans can get involved. Because let's be honest, it's pretty easy to sniff out, what has been AI generated and not. Especially the longer it is, the easier it is to know that if it's AI generated. Not to say that that's a bad thing, and not to say that that's like anyone should really get a gold star. It's like, well, can you tell if that number was generated by a calculator? Like, what does it matter? You know what I mean? The number is the number. The communication is the communication. But, and this is why I think, people don't necessarily mind interacting with AI, because here we are doing it all day long. I mean, you and me, not everybody, but we're interacting with this thing. But people don't want to build a relationship with an AI. That's the part where I think it gets to the her level.
Yeah.
Interacting is completely different. Like if I have to interact with an AI all the time for a software that I'm using that I want to get more value out of, I don't necessarily mind that, because it's always on. It's going to be very relevant. The answers are going to be good quality. It's going to be thorough. But I'm not going to lunch with the AI, And so
Yet.
The human part is knowing that there are other humans inside of that organization who know about you and who are going to advocate for you in a meeting or something like that, where you're talking about, or when that company is talking about the roadmap or the strategy of what they're working on. So maybe one day AI will get to that as well. But I think, at least for today, interactions I think are fine with AI. The relationship building though, like no one is ready to start dating their GPT. Actually, I should not say that. I don't know anyone who is willing to, but there totally is. There are for sure. There's a cohort of people out there that are already.
God. Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Alex, this has been really fun. Thank you so much for spending the time with me on this episode, the first ever episode of MondAI CS, MondAI CS. I don't know. I'm gonna have to work on that one.
Yeah, it's a work in progress, but it's a good work in progress.
True. I appreciate that. Thank you.
And good chat. I appreciate you having me. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Digital CX Podcast. If you like what we're doing, consider leaving us a review on your podcast platform of choice. If you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment down below. It really helps us to grow and provide value to a broader audience, and get more information about the show and some of the other things that we're doing at digitalcustomersuccess.com. I'm Alex Turkovich. Thanks so much for listening. We'll talk to you next week.